Let me ask you something. When did we get to the point where working too hard became a crime in the National Football League? When did dedication, when did passion, when did the relentless pursuit of greatness become something we criticize instead of celebrate? Because that's exactly what's happening right now with Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns, and if you can't see it, you're not paying attention. This isn't just another football story. This is a masterclass in organizational dysfunction. This is what happens when a franchise gets so comfortable with losing that winning becomes terrifying. The Browns didn't just draft Shedeur Sanders to develop him, they drafted him to bury him, and I'm going to prove it to you over the next several minutes with facts, with logic, and with the kind of brutal honesty that nobody else is willing to give you. First, let's establish the timeline, because the timeline exposes everything. Shedeur comes into training camp, and from day one, he's not just participating, he's dominating. We're talking about a rookie quarterback who's throwing with precision that most 10-year veterans would envy. He's commanding the huddle like he's been in the league for a decade. His footwork is clean. His reads are fast. His arm talent is undeniable. The coaching staff can't stop talking about his football IQ. Reporters are buzzing. Fans are excited. Social media is going absolutely insane with highlight clips. Then something interesting happens. The Browns decide to mic him up for a practice. Now, this is significant. You don't mic up just anybody. You mic up players you want to showcase. You mic up players you want the fans to connect with. You mic up players you're building your marketing campaign around. So they put the mic on Shedeur, and guess what? He delivers. He's confident without being cocky. He's focused without being robotic. He's everything you want your franchise quarterback to be. The footage goes viral. The Browns' social media accounts are getting more engagement than they've seen in months. Everything is perfect. And then, just like that, 24 hours later, he's gone. Vanished. Removed from practice. The official explanation? Arm tightness. Arm tightness. Let me repeat that so it really sinks in. A professional quarterback. A man who has been throwing a football since he was probably 5 years old. A man who just completed one of the most impressive college seasons in recent memory. Suddenly has arm tightness from throwing too much in practice. Do you understand how insulting that is? Do you understand how little respect that shows for our intelligence? This is the same league where quarterbacks throw hundreds of passes a week between practice, film study, and games. This is the same league where guys play through broken ribs, separated shoulders, and torn ligaments. But Shedeur Sanders, a young, healthy, incredibly talented quarterback, needs to sit out because his arm is tired? Miss me with that nonsense. But here's where it gets even more disgusting. The media reaction. Instead of questioning this obvious fabrication, instead of demanding answers, instead of pointing out how suspicious this all looks, you had analysts, you had commentators, you had so-called football experts actually criticizing Shedeur for working too hard. Let me say that again. They criticized him for working too hard. They said it was counterproductive. They said he needs to learn to manage his workload. They said he's young and doesn't understand how to pace himself. Are you kidding me? Since when is dedication a flaw? Since when is putting in extra work a negative? This is the National Football League, the highest level of football competition on planet Earth, where the difference between making a roster and getting cut is often determined by who wants it more, who's willing to put in the extra hours, who's willing to sacrifice everything for their dream, and we're gonna sit here and criticize a rookie for wanting it too much. That's not analysis. That's agenda. That's propaganda. That's a coordinated effort to control a narrative. And speaking of narratives, let's talk about the depth chart, because this is where the whole charade completely falls apart. Shedeur Sanders is currently listed as the 4th string quarterback. 4th string, behind Joe Flacco, who's a respected veteran, but let's be honest, his prime was during the Obama administration. Behind Kenny Pickett, who the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team desperate for quarterback help, decided wasn't worth keeping, and behind some other guys who haven't shown a fraction of what Shedeur showed in just a few training camp practices. Now, if this were really about development, if this were really about bringing a young quarterback along slowly, that would be one thing. Plenty of teams have done that successfully. Aaron Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre. Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith. Jordan Love sat behind Aaron Rodgers. But those situations were different. Those quarterbacks were sitting behind established starters, proven winners, guys who were actively leading their teams to success. Shedeur isn't sitting behind legends. He's sitting behind question marks and maybes and probably nots. And here's the thing that should really concern Browns fans. Every single day that Shedeur sits on the bench is a day his development gets stunted. It's a day he's not getting first team reps. It's a day he's not learning to read NFL defenses at game speed. It's a day he's not building chemistry with the starting receivers. It's a day he's not developing the kind of relationship with the offensive line that's crucial for a quarterback's success. Instead, he's running scout team. He's throwing to third stringers. He's practicing against defensive looks that he'll never see in an actual game. That's not development, that's sabotage. But let's dig even deeper because the quarterback room situation is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Let's talk about the Browns' history with quarterbacks. Since they returned to the league, this franchise has gone through quarterbacks faster than most people go through smartphones. We're talking dozens of different starters. We're talking about a revolving door that would make a hotel lobby jealous. They've tried veterans. They've tried rookies. They've tried first-round picks and 7th round picks and undrafted free agents. They've tried everything and nothing has worked. So you would think, you would hope, you would pray that when they finally get a quarterback with genuine star potential, a quarterback who checks every single box, they would do everything in their power to maximize that opportunity. But no. Instead, they're doing everything they can to minimize it. They're finding reasons not to play him instead of finding reasons to get him on the field. They're manufacturing obstacles instead of clearing pathways. It's backwards, it's counterintuitive, it's classic Browns. And let's address the elephant in the room. Let's talk about why this is really happening. It's not about arm tightness. It's not about development. It's not about protecting a young player. It's about politics. It's about egos. It's about a front office that made massive investments in other quarterbacks and can't admit those investments were mistakes. It's about coaches who have their own guys, their own pet projects, their own reputations tied to the success of certain players. It's about an organization that's more concerned with being right than with winning games. Think about it from their perspective for a second. If Shedeur comes in and lights it up immediately, if he proves that he should have been starting from day one, what does that say about the people who put him 4th on the depth chart? What does that say about the scouts who evaluated him? What does that say about the coaches who designed the quarterback competition? It makes them all look incompetent. It exposes their decision making. It puts their jobs at risk. So instead of embracing the talent, instead of riding the wave, they're trying to control it. They're trying to manage it. They're trying to make it fit into their predetermined narrative. This is bigger than football. This is about institutional resistance to change. This is about organizations that become so invested in their own systems and processes that they can't adapt when something unexpected happens. The Browns built their entire offseason plan around a certain quarterback hierarchy. They made promises. They set expectations. They told veterans they'd get opportunities. And then Shedeur showed up and threw all those plans into chaos by being undeniably better than expected. Now they're stuck. They can't start him without admitting they were wrong about everyone else. They can't cut him because the backlash would be nuclear. They can't trade him because that would be admitting they wasted a draft pick. So they're doing the only thing they can do. They're hiding him. They're burying him under vague injury reports and coach speak and organizational bureaucracy, hoping that somehow, some way, the problem resolves itself. But here's what they don't understand. The problem isn't going to resolve itself. It's going to get worse. Because every day that Shedeur sits, the fans get more frustrated, the media asks more questions, the pressure builds, and eventually, inevitably, they're gonna have to play him. Whether it's because of injuries to other quarterbacks, or because the team starts losing badly, or because the owner finally demands it, Shedeur is going to get his shot. And when he does, when he finally gets on that field with real players running real plays against real defenses, he's going to show everyone exactly what the Browns have been trying to hide. Let me paint you a picture of what happens next, because I've seen this movie before. The Browns are going to struggle, their offense is going to sputter, the fans are going to get restless, the media is going to start calling for changes, and somewhere around week 5 or week 6, when the playoffs are starting to slip away, when the pressure is mounting, when they've run out of other options, they're going to finally, reluctantly, desperately turn to Shedeur. And you know what's going to happen. He's going to ball out, he's going to show flashes, he's going to make plays that make you jump off your couch. He's going to give Browns fans that feeling they haven't had in forever, that maybe, just maybe, they finally found their guy. But by then, it'll be too late. The season will be lost, the damage will be done, and the Browns will spend the entire offseason analyzing what went wrong, never quite admitting that what went wrong was keeping their best quarterback on the bench for half the season. They'll talk about development, they'll talk about the learning curve, they'll talk about building for the future, but they won't talk about the truth. They won't talk about how organizational pride got in the way of winning football games. And you want to know the really sad part? This didn't have to happen. The Browns could have handled this differently. They could have been honest from day one. They could have said, we know Shedeur is talented, we know he has a future, but we're gonna bring him along carefully. They could have given him a clear development plan. They could have communicated openly with the fans. They could have managed expectations while still showing faith in their young quarterback, but instead they chose secrecy. They chose deception. They chose to insult everyone's intelligence with this fake injury nonsense. Let's talk about what this means for Shedeur personally, because that's important too. This young man came into the league with something to prove. He heard all the criticism. He heard people say he was only getting attention because of his father. He heard scouts question his arm strength, his decision making, his ability to succeed at the next level, and instead of letting that break him, instead of shrinking from the challenge, he used it as fuel. He came into camp ready to prove everyone wrong. He worked harder than everyone else. He stayed later than everyone else. He studied more than everyone else. He did everything you're supposed to do as a young player trying to make it in the NFL. And what did it get him? A fake injury and a spot at the bottom of the depth chart. That's the reward for excellence in Cleveland. That's what happens when you outwork everyone and outperform everyone. You get punished for it. You get hidden away. You get told to wait your turn even though you've already proven you're the best option. But here's what the Browns don't understand about Shedeur Sanders. This isn't going to break him. This isn't going to discourage him. If anything, it's going to make him hungrier. It's going to give him even more motivation because some players, some special players, they thrive on adversity. They feed off doubt. They use every slight, every setback, every obstacle as fuel to push themselves even harder. Shedeur is one of those players. You can see it in the way he carries himself. You can hear it in the way he talks. You can feel it in the way he competes. This is a quarterback who transferred to Colorado when everyone said it was a terrible decision. This is a quarterback who played behind one of the worst offensive lines in college football and still put up incredible numbers. This is a quarterback who's been doubted and dismissed his entire career and has responded by winning everywhere he goes. You think a fake injury report from the Cleveland Browns is going to stop him? You think being fourth on a depth chart is going to slow him down? Please. This is just another chapter in a story that's been building his entire life. And let's talk about the fans, because Browns fans deserve so much better than this. These are people who have stuck with this franchise through decades of losing. These are people who show up to the stadium in December when it's freezing cold and their team is eliminated from playoff contention. These are people who buy jerseys and merchandise and tickets year after year, despite watching their team find new and creative ways to disappoint them. These fans deserve honesty, they deserve transparency, they deserve a front office that's actually trying to build something instead of playing political games. Instead, they're getting lied to. They're being told that a healthy quarterback is injured. They're being asked to accept a depth chart that makes no sense. They're being treated like they're too stupid to see what's really happening. And that's disrespectful. That's insulting. That's exactly the kind of thing that erodes trust between a franchise and its fan base. You know what the crazy part is? The Browns actually had momentum for once. After years of being the league's punching bag, after years of dysfunction and drama, they finally had something positive to talk about. Shedeur Sanders was generating buzz. People were excited. The national media was paying attention for good reasons instead of bad ones. The Browns were trending on social media because of great plays instead of organizational chaos. They had captured lightning in a bottle, and instead of celebrating it, instead of riding that wave, they smothered it. They put it in a box and shoved it in the closet. That's organizational malpractice. That's self-sabotage. That's the Browns being the Browns, finding a way to turn a positive into a negative, finding a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. It would be funny if it wasn't so tragic. It would be entertaining if it wasn't happening to real people who care deeply about this team. So where does this leave us? Where do we go from here? Because make no mistake, this story is far from over. This is just the beginning. The Browns can try to control the narrative all they want. They can issue all the injury reports and depth charts and official statements they want, but the truth has a way of coming out. Reality has a way of asserting itself, and the reality is that Shedeur Sanders is too talented, too driven, too determined to stay buried for long. At some point, whether it's in preseason or regular season or next year, he's going to get his opportunity, and when he does, he's gonna make the most of it. He's gonna show everyone what the Browns tried so hard to hide. He's gonna prove that all the doubters were wrong, that all the people who tried to slow him down only made him stronger, that greatness can't be contained by fake injuries and organizational politics. This is Cleveland's chance. This is their opportunity to finally get quarterback right. But they're blowing it. They're fumbling the future. They're letting ego and pride and organizational dysfunction get in the way of winning. And when this all falls apart, when the season goes sideways, when they're sitting at home in January watching other teams in the playoffs, they'll have no one to blame but themselves. The saddest part is that it didn't have to be this way. The Browns could have been heroes. They could have been the team that drafted a superstar and had the wisdom to recognize it immediately. They could have been the franchise that finally broke their quarterback curse. Instead, they're going to be remembered as the team that had greatness in their hands and was too afraid to embrace it. That's the real tragedy here. Not that Shedeur won't succeed, because he will, but that the Browns won't be there to benefit from it. They'll have wasted another golden opportunity because they couldn't get out of their own way, and that, more than anything else, is the most Cleveland thing imaginable.